Hello and welcome back to Crushing Comics. I'm your host Peter and I'm here to fall in love with my comic book collection all over again, and maybe you're going to fall in love with it too. This is the last of a big bundle of X-Men books that I opened, and because it's from that period that I first started collecting again, I have a lot to say. And I didn't want to just cram these into the last episode, although they're three kind of distinct things, but I think I have a way to connect them. So it is X-Men Schism, Avengers Assemble, and Avengers X-Sanction. X-Men Schism. This is a book that divides a lot of opinions. Basically, we have seen Cyclops as this revolutionary. It started in Messiah Complex. It continues through Second Coming, and he leaves Second Coming kind of victorious. Like, he did it. He defended the mutant race. He proved his point, right? They survived, and he wins. And throughout this whole period, we really see Wolverine as his trusted lieutenant. Like, it's the best relationship we've really ever seen between Cyclops and Wolverine. But Wolverine's got to do some things as a part of that he doesn't really like doing in terms of X-Force. And even though Wolverine is the best at what he does and he's not afraid to get bloody, Cyclops pulls some other mutants into it that Wolverine doesn't really appreciate him pulling into it, okay? Then meanwhile, in Wolverine's own title, written by Jason Aaron, Wolverine gets sent to Hell. He comes back from Hell, and he goes on a mission to uncover the people who sent him to Hell, and in the process, he has a terrible experience. I think it's a terrible story, but we've established that I don't really like Jason Aaron, and maybe if you like Jason Aaron, or you just don't dislike Jason Aaron, you would have liked it. I'm not going to spoil it all here. It's in the second volume of Jason Aaron Wolverine, which is Wolverine Goes to Hell, or Wolverine's Revenge omnibus. But it's really significant. It's a significant story in the greater arc of Wolverine, and it changes Wolverine. It really makes a fundamental shift to who Wolverine is, how he acts and reacts, and how he thinks about what his duty to mutants is, right? We've had Cyclops, who's been groomed since he was a teenager by Xavier, saying, like, this is my duty to the mutant race. And Wolverine kind of is just there because he's there, right? But this is a different Wolverine. He got his memories back in the wake of House of M in 2006, and then he's been working to kind of unify those memories for the past 4 years in his Wolverine origin story. So this is a very whole Wolverine, and this whole Wolverine goes through a deeply traumatic experience in Aaron's run, and so he's changed. He's a different Logan than we knew, and that's where we pick up Schism. So Schism starts out with this very kind of like revolutionary Cyclops who's said that he's got this extinction team that he's put together, and that's been happening in Gillen's Uncanny X-Men. Gillen picks up the co-writing. He's behind the scenes directly after Second Coming, but he takes over he's just co-plotting. But then he co-writes the next arc, Quarantine, with Matt Fraction, and then he takes over with 534.1. So this story begins with Wolverine emerging from the waters around Utopia, and he's all shot through with arrows and things, and I've always read this as having happened just after that Wolverine's Revenge story in his solo title. I don't know what the official Marvel chronology is of it, because they haven't really released an official issue-by-issue chronology after this, but to me, the change in Wolverine and Schism only makes sense if he's been through that. And I think we're going to get, ultimately, we're going to see where Marvel really places it in that forthcoming Aaron omnibus, because it's going to have to say where Schism fits. And so we'll have a definitive answer. But I'm quite certain that happens before Schism. So we have this very changed Wolverine who's been through all this traumatic stuff, and he comes back to the island, and him and Cyclops seem like they're just having a grand old time doing their thing. But then mutants are put under a new threat by, this is just where it gets terrible. Can you just see my face go? Like, this is when I started to have doubts that anybody was at the steering wheel of the X-Men franchise. They're put under threat by a new Hellfire Club, who are a bunch of 12-year-old children who hate mutants and have constructed a Sentinel. There's a mutant history exhibit opening in San Francisco. A lot of the mutants go. They kind of get, the big X-Men characters like Emma kind of get cornered by the Hellfire Club and taken out one by one, and so the Sentinel is approaching Utopia, and you have Cyclops on one hand being the revolutionary leader saying, give it your all, everybody to the beach, hold off the Sentinel, we just did it in Second Coming, we can do it again. And then you have Wolverine who suddenly got softy, and he's like, don't you dare send these children to be murdered by the Sentinel. It doesn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense at the time. I think with more time to absorb it. I understand Wolverine's position a little bit more, but it had changed so rapidly at that point that unless you were totally caught up with both titles and you could kind of like see in your head what Aaron was doing with Wolverine, that you would appreciate it. And it was hard to do in reading singles at that time, which I actually started to do with Schism because I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be such a big deal for X-Men. And then I realized where it was going and I was like, oh, F this S. And I kind of gave up on buying it in singles. But in retrospect, I think it reads a little bit better. But this idea that Wolverine and Cyclops are going to come to blows and like have their biggest knockdown, drag-out fight of all time that fractures the entire X-Men after they've just been through this traumatic experience of almost being, you know, seeing their whole race wiped out. I just don't buy it. I don't buy that in the middle of a Sentinel attack that Wolverine and Cyclops are having this brutal fight. It just didn't make any sense. It was one of those things that Jason Aaron did that I'm like, maybe if I was like a doodly dude who had a beard and loves duty stuff, I would understand these two dudes having a dude fight on their dude beach about their dude problems. But like, that's how I feel about Aaron sometimes. And I'm totally not trying to like marginalize you if you're a dude with a beard who likes Jason Aaron, or if you're in fact Jason Aaron. But I just feel like sometimes I'm like, I don't understand the decisions that Jason Aaron has his characters make at all. Like I'm not in the same planet as characters who like have those motivations. And this is one of those moments that I felt this way. So should you buy this? Oh my God, don't. I hate it. And here's the thing, even if you like it or might like it, you don't need it. Because it goes from Uncanny X-Men to Uncanny X-Men splitting into two flagships, one of which being Uncanny X-Men Volume 2, which was like a big to-do at the time because it was Marvel's longest running title and they restarted it, and that was the beginning of the end as far as I'm concerned. But then also Wolverine and the X-Men, which was Aaron writing a goofy, funny X-Men title. You'll notice we haven't unwrapped that book, and spoiler alert, it is not one of my last two books we're unwrapping. I hate it. So, but again, I don't understand Aaron. I don't get it. So I think I'm saying two different things. A, I don't understand Aaron, but B, even in my not understanding Aaron and like accounting and handicapping for that, this is an inessential story that just doesn't make a lot of sense in the scope of X-Men, and it's just not good. Okay? And it started the beginning of the end for the X-Men because it sets them on a path that takes less than a year to get to X-Men versus, or Avengers versus X-Men. I mean, it happens like 6 or 7 months after Schism wraps up. And to get there, we have to look at these two series, Avengers Assemble and Avengers X-Sanction. So the Avengers franchise, you know, we've talked about that in the last episode that that star was rising, and we're coming up to the Avengers movie coming out, having seen Iron Man 1 and 2 and having seen the first Thor and Captain America movies. And so Brian Bendis launches this new title, Avengers Assemble, in 2012, and it's meant to be the movie Avengers team. It has all of the team that would be in the movie, and it has also the Guardians of the Galaxy, because at this point Marvel knows that that's going to be an upcoming movie too. And so Bendis, you know, this is it after? He hasn't quite wrapped up his runs on New Avengers and on Avengers, both of which that launched in 2010 with the Heroic Age, and he's writing this alongside it. So Bendis is writing 3 monthly Avengers titles, all at the same time at this point, plus Ultimate Spider-Man, plus maybe also Moon Knight in this period. He's writing a lot of comic books for Marvel, plus his creator-owned stuff. And this story, it's just like a fun, big screen Avengers story. It's not the best story, but it kind of establishes that movie version of the team, which includes bringing Hulk back to the Avengers. And it brings in the Guardians of the Galaxy, which most of the Marvel characters have never met, because they've just been in space all this time since the, you know, Annihilation, and so they're not known to all the Earth characters as a team, right? And then also it brings back Thanos, who was kind of shuffled off stage in a dramatic fashion at the end of War of Kings and Realm of Kings, but he's brought back here, which has caused a lot of enmity with Bendis, because a lot of fans were like, he just got sent off stage, how dare you bring him back, and not bring back Richard Rider as Nova, which Bendis halfway atones for in his Guardians of the Galaxy. So this is one of the last Avengers stories that fits before Avengers versus X-Men, and it kind of gives the sense of this consolidation of the Avengers under the guise of being directed by Captain America and Iron Man, who of course have had their own schism in the past with Civil War and would have a schism again in Marvel now in terms of their differences in opinion on how to handle the incursions. But then there's also this piece, Avengers X-Sanction. Now this is kind of like a dopey little miniseries, and it becomes inessential. Like it's one of those things that Marvel did at the time where they hyped like, this is so important, it's going to affect your ability to understand Avengers versus X-Men. It doesn't really. Basically, it brings Cable back from where we've left him off in Second Coming. And Cable has this future knowledge of something that happens, and he's like determined to do it, and the Avengers don't think he should do it, and it kind of brings them to blows with the X-Men. But it's pretty lightweight, and it doesn't actually set up Avengers versus X-Men. Like, I think what it's meant to show is that there is some amount of conflict and head-knocking between the X-Men and the Avengers now that the X-Men have kind of emerged from having their back up against the wall, and Cyclops is kind of making them more proactive and saying, we're a superhero team too, and we're more powerful than any superhero team on the planet, and that the Avengers have to have like an equal and separate reaction to that. However, for me, the thing that really was the arc that did that was the two issues that came right before Avengers vs. X-Men in Uncanny X-Men Volume 2, issues 9 and 10, which featured like Scott Summers, Cyclops' extinction team of the most powerful X-Men bumping up against the Avengers and having to like briefly cooperate with them. And that was so much more meaningful for me in setting it up. And the unspoken thing here, because there's no oversized releases of it, was, you know, Kieran Gillen taking over X-Men and writing, in my opinion, the best run of Uncanny X-Men since Chris Claremont, okay? I'm not saying it was the only good X book since Chris Claremont, but in terms of flagship X-Men, it's the best it had been. And to me, that does include Morrison. I think that Kieran Gillen's run was better than Morrison's run. Morrison's run was about changing and reestablishing things. Kieran Gillen's run was about just working with what he had, and I think that it's so much more impressive to work with what you've got and write something as strong as what Gillen wrote than to start a lot of things from scratch. It's never been released in hardcover that's oversized. It should be. It's the perfect size for an omnibus that really could start right after Second Coming, since Gillen was already co-plotting at that point, and go right to the beginning of Avengers vs. X-Men. So that's fantastic, and I think in this period, after you've wrapped up Second Coming, which we talked about in the last episode, these are all books that are kind of dancing around Gillen's run on Uncanny X-Men. And it was that was one of the reasons that I found Schism so annoying at the time, was because it was written by Jason Aaron, and I was like, why is Jason Aaron writing this? Gillen is steering the X-Men franchise right now. Little did I know that Marvel was about to launch Wolverine and the X-Men, written by Aaron, to be the co-flagship with Gillen. But there was a lot of feeling at this time. Gillen was very popular with fans, and there was a lot of feeling at this time that he was getting like the short end of the stick somehow. And that continued into the Avengers vs. X-Men era, because he didn't write Avengers vs. X-Men because he wasn't a Marvel architect as Aaron was. And so he eventually gets to write Avengers AVX Consequences to put his little tag on Avengers vs. X-Men. But you just get this sense that poor Gillen, you know, he maybe could have been writing X-Men for years, and that he kind of just got shuffled off to the side. Marvel ultimately makes good with him on that by allowing him to write Darth Vader, which wound up being a massive hit. And of course, Gillen now, along with his frequent collaborator McKelvey, Jamie McKelvey, has not Phonogram, I mean he also has Phonogram, but he has Wicked and Divine, which is a massive hit. So, turned out okay for him anyway. It's not like he got shuffled all the way off stage. But part of me has to wonder, shoulda, coulda, woulda, what would happen if Gillen had been in charge of Schism? Would I get it, since it wasn't the doodly-doo-doo-doo-doo-ness? Or what if Gillen had been able to keep writing X-Men after Avengers vs. X-Men, other than Bendis? You know, whenever Bendis gets to a title, the big old hook comes out and like toes off the people who had been writing it. It's about to happen to DC. DC has had the best Superman has been in years, decades, almost a century, but all of those writers are being shuffled off stage because Bendis is going to take over Superman. Anyway, so here's the end of that huge packet of X-Men. Right here, we have 2 more unwrappings to go, and I can tell you now they're both X-Men books, so please tune back in. But first, the ceremonial shelving of X-Men Schism, Avengers Assemble, and Avengers X-Sanction. Oh my goodness, I almost can't put them on the shelf with my paperweight. Okay. Tune in next time Here's my beautiful geode paperweight. Tune in next time as we unwrap 2 more. Well, we're only going to wrap 1 next time. So tune in the next 2 times as we unwrap 2 more books to finish falling in love with my comic book collection all over again here on Crushing Comics. Thank you so much for watching.